I'd like to share a little bit of Kevin and Pinky's story. I've revised it down from the 46 pages I've received. So listen and you'll know parts of this. This is a story of God bringing two people from very different backgrounds along different paths to this place today where they are going to become one. They're going to enter the covenant of marriage to become one for the rest of their lives. These two kids had two different kinds of trouble. One was introduced to God through a friend who took him to youth group. The other grew up in church and was a pastor's kid. Trouble indeed, I understand that. One followed the world for a while, the other followed God. Both experienced brokenness, defeat, disappointment, and loss. And yet God was actively working on both of them to gain their hearts fully, to make them who He wanted them to be. They took very different paths. Kevin went into the Marines and ended up in Iraq. Pinky went to Africa for a year. Kevin made a quick and foolish choice to marry while dealing with post-Iraq trauma and thinking. Pinky remained single and even became content with staying that way if God should will. Kevin had two kids, but came to heartache. Kevin fought for his marriage and his kids, but with biblical grounds for divorce and with his daughters' lives to protect, he left the marriage and the military to care for his daughters on his own. Pinky was given a dream from God about caring for broken, abused, unwanted, and motherless children. She thought it would take her back to Africa. Instead, it brought her to the heart of Douglas County. God was working on Pinky's heart to rid her of unbiblical judgments and prejudices. And He was working on Kevin's heart to surrender to God's will rather than trying to do everything on his own. Both surrendered to God's will and His ideas, and that's when He brought them together. Pinky was checking Kevin out secretly and Facebook stalking him. Thought he was taken and probably not a believer, but still dreamed of that single dad and his two daughters. And she saw a pure, rich, and sacrificial love in what he did. Kevin's mother befriended Pinky and built a bridge and a friendship, while Donnell, a co-worker, did a lot of matchmaking, in spite of some initial resistance. Pinky started caring for Kevin's daughters by choice and with joy, first of all through the school and then outside of it. She was still trying to remain distant from Kevin in order not to complicate the relationship with his daughters and family. And although Pinky was in denial for a long time, she was falling in love with Kevin. Pinky's heart adopted Adriana and Jaden, Kevin's daughters, to love them and to be a mother figure to them. She committed to putting them first and not herself, and they wholeheartedly responded. Kevin took it slow and steady and finally shared his faith fully with Pinky on a ride to Portland. They admitted they liked each other. Kevin was more self-confident about sharing, and Pinky, unlike her normal self, was completely embarrassed and sheepish. They began dating then with the intention of marriage, with very intentional steps and no serious question left unturned. They began parenting together, these two girls, and the relationship continued to grow and deepen. Kevin was very grateful and respectful of all the help, input, and love that Pinky contributed to their lives. And anytime Pinky was afraid, she would take it to God. And God would give her peace, reassurance, direction, confirmation, and remind her of her call to these girls and to Kevin, and to all the other children that God's going to give them. When he proposed with his girls, asking, "Will you marry us? Will you be our forever mama?" Pinky gladly said yes. It's a beautiful story. It's awesome to see how God takes the ashes and brokenness in our lives and loves to create out of that beauty. Because then when people see it, they say that has to be God. Because it doesn't follow the normal script of our lives. I'd like to share a couple verses that you've asked me to highlight from Ephesians chapter 5. And too often I think we start in weddings with the part that's about husbands and wives. And we miss the power that comes to be the husbands and wives that God wants us to be. It says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light." You're going to find that the Bible is not only a powerful devotional tool connecting you to God, it also is an excellent marriage manual. That we are to be light in our homes. We we are to have God's light in us. It's in the quietness of the behind the scenes where nobody else sees. We need God's transforming power, not our too often superficial love. It says the fruit of the light consists in goodness and righteousness and truth. So find out what pleases the Lord and have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And then it jumps down and says, be careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. I think most of us want to be wise without all the confusion and difficulties that it takes to get wise.